Good day, folks. Welcome back. This is Chris in Central Texas talking about a story that just doesn't seem to go away. The latest update on that LadyR incident that happened a couple of years ago when Ruben Brigidi was the U.S. ambassador in South Africa. Some sources are indicating now that, in fact, there were munitions turned over to LadyR. Sources indicate, I cannot verify this independently, therefore I'm not claiming this is the case. I'm simply stating that there are forces come forward, or sources that come forward, I should say, who are indicating that there were proximity fuses for 155 howitzers that were delivered to LadyR. This in complete opposite direction of what the government has said. Remember that the LadyR arrived in Simonstown, and residents there could see the ship. They could see vehicles that showed up late at night. They could see the operations of offloading things at night and then uploading things. And when citizens asked for information about what's happening, why the ship was there and what it was doing at night, the government was mute. It was mum on the subject for months. They ignored the social media requests. They ignored requests from the media about that situation. It was only about 5 months later when the U.S. government, exasperated after having spent months politely, respectfully asking for answers to why a sanctioned defense contractor was arriving at South Africa's main naval base in the middle of a war that Russia was prosecuting against Ukraine illegally. It was only at that stage, 5 months later, that the U.S. got no response from the South African government, that the Biden administration told Brigidi to hold a press conference and announce to the world that this ship was receiving weapons or military hardware. The South African government finally then responded and said, no, that's not true, it's not possible. And they tried to ignore it for some time, but eventually appointed a commission which brushed this thing under the table. But here we are some time later, and we've got a situation a couple years later where sources, whether they're credible or not, I can't attest to at this stage. And that's why I'm not making a big deal about this, but I think it's important that this is put out there because it does make sense. I mean, what I just explained to you about why Brigidi spoke with a press conference, and you remember that, of course, Ambassador Brigidi later apologized, not for saying that the South African government was giving munitions or weapons to the Russians, but for the way he announced it in a press conference. But the U.S. government never apologized. Also, it's quite telling that Ruben Brigidi was never recalled to Washington. If he was off the reservation and simply doing what he wanted to do as a rogue ambassador, then he would have been removed. He would have been recalled to Washington. But he was never recalled to Washington. And why is that? Because he was doing what the U.S. government wanted him to do, which is what his responsibility is, to follow the direction of the President of the United States. In this case, it was after getting no response from the South African government, who were stonewalling the U.S. because, why? Well, we could presume it's because they were correct. There were munitions. And here we are some time later now, and some sources indicating that there was 155 proximity fuses that were provided to Russia via the LadyR. Is it true? We don't have the evidence at the moment, but if it is true, the evidence will eventually come out. People will talk, documents will be found, maybe even, who knows, even video. But if it's true, that will come out. If it's not true, then people are just simmering this LadyR situation. And let's posit that for a moment. Let's say that it's not true, that this is just a rumor and the sources aren't credible and someone's trying to stir the pot. The question then becomes, to what end? It's not like scandals result in any action in South Africa. The Verde Dairy Farm scandal, the asbestos tender, Zandile Gumeda, Ace Magashule, Dr. Zwaylen Kesey's Digital Vibes, the PP scandals, Pala Pala, the arms deal from 2.5 decades ago, Oilgate, Travelgate. The list of corruption scandals in South Africa is so long we can't even remember all of them, and more get revealed every day, and virtually no heads ever roll. So if in fact the source or sources that have come forward and indicated this about proximity fuses loaded on LadyR, if they're making up the story, why? It's not like there would be any consequences for this. I mean, we've seen the chief of the South African National Defense Force travel to Iran and pledge fealty and alliance with the Iranian Revolutionary Guard Corps. I mean, that's a state sponsor of terrorism, and that's what the chief of South Africa's Defense Force did. And then, of course, no one knew he was going to do that, but then they tried to backtrack and say the trip was approved. We've also seen a situation where the Iranian Revolutionary Guard Corps came to participate in Operation Mosi 3, which was renamed Will for Peace. And the South African government claimed that the Chinese were responsible for it. Well, it's on your shores. You're a sovereign state. And I love how the South African government endlessly complains that we're a sovereign state. We don't have to answer to the United States or anyone else. We do what we want. And you're right. You don't. You're a sovereign state. So if you're a sovereign state, then why are you letting terrorist sanctioned and designated groups participate in naval exercises? It's your sovereign soil and your water. So what's going on here? I don't know. I would need more information in order to put credibility to this story. But if it's true, it just shows you once again how things are out of control in South Africa. Of course, the government never voted against Russia's invasion. The government has claimed neutrality in South Africa, but the government is clearly in the same camp with Russia, with Cuba, with Venezuela, with Iran, with Communist China. I think the only one we left off that rogues list was North Korea. So, what's happening? I don't know. I'm not making any allegations, but it is interesting that we have people saying that there were proximity fuses. Pallet loads of proximity fuses went on there. People saw things being loaded at night, and it was odd, and the government denied anything untoward was happening. What do you believe, South Africa? Feel free to answer in the comments. Do you think that there's any smoke to this fire? Do you think that this is a plausible story? Do you think that it's true? Or is it just someone venting and telling fairy tales? I don't know. We need more information. But now it just, in my view, in a case that I believe has never been closed, the LadyR situation, to me it's always been open for a continued investigation because I wasn't satisfied with the results of the government probe. I think this just keeps the investigation going or reopens the investigation for those who hope to close it. What say you? All right, folks, be sure to hit the like button if you don't mind and leave a comment behind. And again, for those of you who don't listen to what I said, I'm not accusing anybody of anything. And I'm not stating unequivocally that this is true. What I'm saying is that sources have said this. We need to run this down and find out what happened. Cheers.